Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Targan, you know what time it is? It is the last Thursday in the month, and that means it's time for the Mr. Monthly News Roundup. It's absolutely wild that kids are back in school, summer is basically over, and we're moving into fall, and a brand new month for MiSTer FPGA. So let's get into the news. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But I think the number one news of the month is the fact that Robert FPGA Zoom's boss's MiSTer FPGA core is going to be the basis of the mod Retro M64. Basically, on MiSTer, we have a couple of games that show a couple weird behaviors. In Donkey Kong 64, in the intro sequence, Donkey Kong will miss a vine because of timing, and there's a couple other patches in games that basically make them work due to some latency in the memory. And Robert's always talked about the fact that he wants to go back in and actually rework the core to fix those last few issues. And the nice thing is, with this deal with Mod Retro, Robert working on it, it's going to be open source, which means that if any of those fixes can be backported to the MiSTer FPGA core, that's exactly what's going to happen. So hopefully in the end, not only do you get an M64 using FPGA Zoom's boss's MiSTer core, but you also get a better MiSTer core in the end. It's really nice to see these two things kind of go hand in hand in conjunction, because Robert basically just said that the MiSTer FPGA and Cyclone 5 chip had a few issues with the overall latency in the memory sharing with the scaler and other OS features, and that just couldn't be worked around. Like I said, in practice, you would barely ever know that there were any issues with the Nintendo 64 core on MiSTer whatsoever. There's about two things that I could point out, but if you're just playing, 100% of the games are 100% playable from start to finish on the retail library, and a ton of ROM hacks as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this progresses and whether or not it ends up updating the MiSTer FPGA core in the future. But I do think it's great that Robert arranged to make sure that all that code was still open source, because it's not like Mod Retro had to ask Robert to work on this. The code is out there, it's on GitHub, so anyone can make a console based around it, and that would be permissible. But this is a really nice thing for the community, at least on the MiSTer FPGA side of things. Having this core get worked on again, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, because suddenly we're going to have MiSTer FPGA and the N64 core, we're going to have the M64, and whenever Analogue ends up shipping the Analogue 3D, we're going to have that as well. 3 different cores on the market, both for N64. It'll be really interesting to test them side by side, but that was a big piece of news. Now moving over to the Taki Udon and Retro Remake side, we found out that the dock on the SuperStation 1 is going to have full snack support as well as a toggle, because one of the most requested features that pretty much everyone had out there was the fact that, sure, you could hook up PlayStation 1 controllers and memory cards via snack on the main console, but people wanted to use their original controllers on the SuperStation 1 outside of PlayStation 1. So Taki Udon and Retro Remake went ahead and basically made a toggle switch and a snack port that will allow you to either enable or disable the PlayStation 1 controls up front. That way you can either use PS1 controllers for the games that support it, or you can go ahead and plug in other snack adapters to get stuff like Super Nintendo and N64. And this, at least in my comments, was one of the most requested features on the SuperStation 1, the ability to plug in whatever original controller you might like and continue to use it like you would on normal MiSTer FPGA. So that's absolutely awesome, because to say that there's a metric crap ton of controllers you can use would be an absolute understatement. The other thing that people really wanted to see, and Taki Udon has displayed not just on PlayStation 1 but other consoles as well, is original CD reading, not just dumping the data from the disk and using the disk as kind of a flag to load up that dumped ROM, but actually streaming the data in from the compact disc and then playing it from there. Now it is still a proof of concept, I'm sure there's still more work that needs to be done, but Taki Udon and Retro Remake have shown a lot of different demos of this actually reading disc from the SuperStation 1 dock, so that definitely seems like something, at least for PlayStation 1 and other consoles, will be coming to the SuperStation 1 when it ships, or maybe sometime after that, because I'm sure the initial hardware and software will definitely be out there, but maybe it'll take a couple software updates to get to all of this, because you'll see they also previewed it for the actual PC Engine CD. We've seen Sega CD as well as Sega Saturn, so this is definitely exciting. Not only did the SuperStation 1 grow a snack port that will allow you to use other controller adapters, but we also now have evidence of other games running off the disk, not just dumping them, so it'll be fun to test this out and review it in fall when it finally starts shipping. Now on the arcade side of things with Hotego, we have some more information on Capcom CPS3 and how Hotego and his team plan on actually getting there, and it's going to be through Golfing Greats as well as Running Gun, a Konami arcade board, and that's just because Hotego is building a new frame buffer to be able to be compatible with the Capcom CPS3. And if you're not familiar with what a frame buffer is basically just a way to store the Nexus Blade frame, or sometimes more than one with a double frame buffer, that way it's ready to draw to the television when it is called for. And basically both Golfing Greats and and Run and Gun are going to be using these pseudo 3D chips, and Run and Gun is going to need a frame buffer as well. So Hotego's been going in and basically buttoning these cores up, trying to get them out into the public. That way he can start working on Capcom CPS 3 next. So right now we don't really have Run and Gun, but it is in the works, and it is going to go and actually help get that Capcom CPS 3 core out into the wild. Because I know pretty much every comment I see, people want CPS 3 more so than anything else on the arcade side of things, except the people that know what the IGS PGM are, and they actually want to see that first, just because it is a bigger library. But the reality is, the Capcom CPS 3 is a fun platform with a ton of great fighting games, and only fighting games. It is very limited as far as the library is concerned, but it's also incredibly delicate hardware, as I like to say in other videos, and it would be great to have a CPS 3 core for MiSTer FPGA, but it'll definitely have to wait and see just how long that's going to take, because this is still preliminary work. So much so that basically Hotego and his team figured out that there was an issue in the MAME driver on some of the interrupts. It's not on the Motorola 68000, it's actually on the Zilog Z80, or Z80 for everyone else in the world that always complains that I say the letter Z. So this is definitely not only going to improve things on the MiSTer FPGA side of things when we get these cores, it's also been submitted to MAME as an issue. That way hopefully MAME can use this information as well and make emulation on their side better. And that really is how deep this stuff goes. It basically can just solve problems even if you aren't actually working on MAME. So hopefully sometime this fall, maybe winter, we'll see a beta core for the Capcom CPS 3 arcade board. I know a ton of people out there are definitely interested in getting it, so hopefully it happens soon, and I'll definitely update it as soon as I have more information. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, Capcom CPS 3 or IGS PGM. I would be curious. Now moving over to Wicker Waka and his Taito F2 core, it got 2 new games in the month of August, and honestly they're 2 incredible games that anyone will be happy to play on MiSTer FPGA, and that is always fun to start getting new arcade cores, because we basically have almost all of the consoles buttoned up at this point in time, minus something like 3DO. We still don't have a test core for that. Hopefully that's something that maybe we'll see in September or October from SRG 320. And just so you know, there have been a couple minor updates to Sega Saturn as well, just nothing so fundamental as to end up making it into the news episode, because they really are under the hood improvements that you really wouldn't notice much difference as far as games are concerned. But the arcade side of things still has a ton of life left in it on MiSTer FPGA. There's so many different cores and so many different boards that could come over onto the platform. The one I'd love to see the most outside of IGS PGM would be the Taito F3, but Wicker Waka said not really looking at that right now, but hopefully maybe in the future he might. I've even heard him mention stuff like Rasten Saga, Warrior Blade 3. I would love to see that actually come over to MiSTer FPGA. It is my favorite beat 'em up of all time, and honestly I sold my board because it is a pain to hook up with the 2 monitor system. But this is always fun to get new arcade games, especially great shmups and others from Taito. Stuff like Metal Black here is just a straight up awesome game, and I never feel like Taito gets the credit they deserve outside of their major releases. Konami, Capcom, companies like even Sega, they always get acclaim when it comes to arcade games, but stuff like Dead Connection here, a straight up hidden gem when it comes to arcade games. It is one of my favorite Taito games of all time, and now it works on MiSTer FPGA. Now the F2 core is still in development, so you might see a visual bug here and there. When it updates or adds new games, I'll definitely do a video for that in the month of September. But if you haven't updated your MiSTer, if you haven't installed these cores yet, I can't stress enough, Metal Black and Dead Connection are 2 straight up hidden gems from the arcade side of things. I feel like Metal Black is more well known than Dead Connection, but for a single screen run and gun action game, this thing is just straight up fun from start to finish. It's got that fun 1920s gangster aesthetic, and even though they won't tell you as such, it definitely takes place in Chicago, the city I live in, because there's a hot dog without any ketchup on it, and that is a Chicago dog any day of the week and twice on Sundays. But if you haven't checked out Metal Black or Dead Connection yet, I can't stress out enough, not only are the cores like 95% done with just a few tiny visual glitches, they are 2 incredible arcade games. So hopefully one day, whether it's Wicker Waka or somebody else, will see a Taito F3 core, because I still think that is the best platform that they ever made as far as the games are concerned. Now moving over to the Cave 68000 core coin op collection released Ergolet or Ergolet, depending on how you want to pronounce it, in August as well. It's basically the very end of July, maybe August 1st. I'd have to go back and check, but it didn't make last month's news episode, and it is another awesome shmup that definitely has a fun challenge to it and a really good graphical prowess. It's one of those things, the developers of this game basically said they felt like they failed when they made it, and the game did not review well back in the day, but that's just because there was a proliferation of these type of military fighter jet shmups on the market. So it's basically trying to compete in an already overcrowded field. But the good thing is, in 2025, we don't need to compare it against other games that were released around the same time. We can just compare it to all the shmups we've played, and I will say this is like an 8.5 out of 10 in my opinion, and it is 100% playable in the Coin Op Collection core today. You may have to manually install it, and you have to do a couple things with the actual files for the game, combining different ROM banks into their own unique individual files with a Python script. So I know that trips up a few people, but it definitely is worth it. At this point in time, I'm sure it'll probably be pretty easy to just find a pre-built image out there as well. But honestly, this game just has a stunning look to it. The Cave 68000 board with that Motorola 68000 and Cave custom hardware on board could push around a lot of sprites, background layers, and do some fun visual tricks like you see here with that tower actually looking like it's in 3D, even though it's basically just scaling and rotating some sprites to make it look like that. But this is another fun one, and I'm glad to see more arcade cores coming out this summer, because it felt like the arcade side of things on MiSTer FPGA was a little bit quiet for a while. But leave me a comment down below, outside of Capcom CPS3 or IGS PGM, if you could snap your fingers right now and make one core appear on the arcade side that doesn't, which one would it be? I'm going to go with a little bit of a deeper cut this time. I'm going to say the Taito GNAT, which is basically just a PlayStation 1 with a higher clock speed and some of the Q-Sound hardware from the Capcom ZN1 and ZN2 series of arcade boards. I'm not sure if we'll ever see any of the PlayStation-based arcade cores on MiSTer FPGA, but it is something that I would love to see in the future, because there are a ton of fun exclusive games, and on the GNAT in and of itself, Chaos Heat is just a straight up 10 out of 10. But if you haven't played Ergolay yet, I can't recommend it enough. It is a metric ton of fun, it's got a great vibe, and definitely is worth your time. But obviously, if I had to pick one piece of news this month that was bigger than any other one, even though it's MiSTer FPGA adjacent, it would be the fact that Robert or FPGA Zoomspas is working with Mod Retro to bring that N64 MiSTer core over to their hardware with some improvements, and hopefully being able to backport as many of those improvements as he can get fitment-wise into that FPGA footprint. Because the only reason there's a couple outstanding issues on MiSTer side of things is due to that memory latency. If that didn't exist, Robert would have taken care of that probably a year ago, and we wouldn't have those two tiny little blips as far as the game playability is concerned. But again, I can't stress enough, if I didn't show you them in a video, you probably wouldn't ever see the fact that there were any issues in the MiSTer FPGA core whatsoever. So if all you want to do is play N64 and FPGA, and for some reason you're watching this video and don't have a MiSTer, just pick one up. It's going to do absolutely everything you need. No reason to wait for the Analogue 3D or Mod Retro M64 if you just want to play today. But that's the news for the month of August. I'll see you guys in September. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're in the US, have a great holiday. Bye-bye.